Hey all, it is Wednesday, December 9th. This is your weekly CRC update. I'm Chip Sauer, one of the pastors here at Community Reformed Church. Just thankful for you taking a few minutes to watch this video, and we do have some big news and some hard news. It's been a difficult last 24 hours around here at Community Reformed Church in light of the extension of the health order. We've begun the conversation of how we respond to that. Our staff met yesterday and with lots of emotion and lots of challenge, made a decision to recommend to consistory that we go online only from now until January 10th. And the consistory affirmed that plan, and that was not an easy conversation for any of us. There's just a clear sense that we want to get together, and thinking about losing something else like our Christmas Eve service together feels pretty overwhelming. But we also believe that that's the best plan moving forward, and there's a number of different factors that impact us. One is listening to the voices of others who are suggesting that it is encouraging a lack of safety to continue to meet in big groups, and also really thinking about how we best love and serve the people in our community. And so in light of that, we've made the decision to be online only, so there will not be in-person Christmas Eve services. The rest of our Sunday services through January 10th will be online only. And so just encourage you to be in prayer for our leadership as we adjust plans. Part of the reason making this decision now is helpful to us is it helps us to plan, especially for that Christmas Eve service, to spend some time thinking about how we can be creative in both celebrating the gift of Christ being born, but also trying to do that in a way that we can connect with each other. So I'm not sure what that's all going to look like at this point, but this gives us some time to make those plans. So it's with heavy hearts that I share that that's going to be the case. And in my own processing of that, it was helpful for me to reread what we originally put out when COVID first hit and we decided to make the decision to go online only. We made those decisions based on some values and priorities, and I think it's been helpful. It may be helpful to you for me to reiterate what those were and how I think they're still true today. So first, one of the core values that we wanted to embrace in the midst of being a church, but especially in the midst of circumstances like this, is humility. In the midst of an unprecedented situation, none of us are experts, and we should be wary of too much certainty or confidence. We're all aware that everybody has different opinions about stuff, and so operating out from a spirit of humility, I think, is really important. One of our other core values is patience. Regardless of when we meet together again in large groups, we are a church and God is God. Therefore, we can be patient. In a culture that has grown to value instant gratification, we can model countercultural patience. We don't have to rush anything as though our identity is at stake. We can be patient with moving back towards gathering together that is slower and, as we've all experienced, more clunky than we'd prefer. Another value is flexibility. Flexibility for two reasons. Because none of us have ever done this before. We are having to rethink how we do church, and we're making it up as we go. And it's part of why the prayer is so important, as we discern how best to navigate these things that are important to us in a way that's different than what we want or what we're used to. We have to be flexible and graceful in the face of new experiments, because this thing could change and has changed rapidly. And sadly, it's moved in a more negative direction in the last few months. Another value is grace. We want to extend grace to one another. As each person has different views of what's safe and what ought to happen, we have an opportunity to live into 1 Corinthians 8 and 9 by making sure our sense of freedom is not a stumbling block for others. We need to understand that different perspectives are legitimate and be careful not to judge others for the approach they feel they must take, an approach that is undoubtedly evolving. Sacrifice. In a culture that idolizes self, we have a tremendous opportunity to think and act on behalf of others. If Christ could carry a cross, we can wash our hands, we can wear masks, we can sacrifice some of the things that we really want for our sense of what's best for others. And finally, unity. We obviously live in a very hyper-partisan world, and we have the opportunity to model something different. In the words of Paul in Ephesians 4, to lead a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And then a couple of the priorities that really are driving kind of our actions. First is relationships. We are made in, through, and for relationships. And this time has led to increased isolation. I bet that this is a time that you're acutely aware of that. All of us have navigated Thanksgiving and the challenges of that, and maybe some of the loss that's been part of that, where we haven't been able to gather with the people we normally would have. We've been making plans for Christmas and recognizing that many of us are making plans that are not the plans that we want to make. We want to foster relational connection as best as we can, even if we cannot get together. Moreover, we want to foster a relationship with God through various means. One of the things that was very evident in our conversations last night with consistory was a deep sense of longing to help those who are lonely and isolated, who are feeling overwhelmed by the circumstances that they're in the midst of, by the people that are in the nursing homes or kind of isolated in their own home, that those are people that we should be thinking about. Those are people that we should be reaching out to. Those are people that we should be praying for. That as much as it's easy to focus inwardly on how I'm feeling and how I'm navigating this, one of the challenges for each of us is to really be thinking about people outside of ourselves, to send a card, to make a phone call, to drive by and wave, and to express that we care about and are thinking about people who are facing a pretty difficult challenge in the midst of these circumstances. Another ministry priority is discipleship. Although our Sunday morning gatherings is vital to our life together, and we long for it to return, we also know it serves a greater purpose, making more and better disciples of Jesus. We can still be doing many other things to serve that purpose. In fact, this is a great time to challenge any mental models wherein the church is just a building and following Jesus is just about going to a worship service on Sunday. There's so much more to following Jesus that's part of our life, that even though we can't gather like we want to, there are many other ways that we continue to grow and live out our faith. Outreach. This pandemic has provided the opportunity for us to see ourselves and at times to confess our tendency to our own self-interests and self-preservation. This is a time in which God is calling us to serve others, to be sensitive to the needs of those around us, and to act. Whatever you do to the least of these, Jesus says, you do unto me. And of course, one of our major priorities is living into God's Word. And these values that I've described are reflected in God's Word. They reflect the heart of God. They reflect the person of Jesus. And so as we have made these decisions, we're making these decisions out of these values and holding on to these priorities. And again, ask that you continue to pray, not only for us as a leadership as we then figure out what to do with Christmas Eve, and we're going to have an online congregational meeting for the first time ever on January 10th, and we're not sure how to do that. We're in the process of figuring that out, so we covet your prayers. But also to pray for each of us to be open to the ways that we're called to live into these values and to serve and love the people around us. So I find that really helpful. I hope you find that helpful too. Again, part of this also includes that our congregational meeting will be on January 10th. It will be an online venue. We're not sure exactly what that's going to look like. It raises lots of questions about voting, but we're going to work through that. There's a number of churches that we're connected, that we're familiar with, that are navigating online congregational meetings, and so we're going to kind of learn from their best practices. But we will be online only, including our congregational meeting on January 10th. In other news, much more exciting, positive news. We don't want the clandestine arrival of our youth minister to not be shared. So Dan Adams has arrived in Charlevoix. He got here yesterday. He's going to begin working here at the church on Monday, the 14th. So I encourage you to be in prayer for he and Caitlin. Caitlin's not coming until January, so you could pray for them too, being separated over the course of the holidays as well. But we're so excited to have Dan with us and encourage you to be in prayer for Dan as he begins ministry in this very unique time where face-to-face connections and visiting people is much more difficult. Just ask your prayers for him and just want to celebrate with you about his arrival here. And then finally, just wanted to share the plan for this Sunday. Again, it's online only. It'll be at 9 o'clock. The title of the message is The Unexpected Blessings of Adoration, and it's going to be coming from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verses 37 and 38, and from Matthew, chapter 2, verse 11. So I hope that you're able to join us this Sunday online at 9 o'clock. So we'll stay in touch and just encourage all of us to stay connected. I think it's such an interesting time, and some of the news that I shared is just going to add to this. It's a time where there is grief and loss that's part of what we're experiencing. I was just so aware yesterday with staff and with consistory the difficult feelings that decisions like this and the circumstances we're in bring about. And it's important that we express those feelings, obviously in appropriate ways. But part of the way that we can express that is continue to bring that to God. And hopefully to be able to express that with people in our life as well. And at the same time, and I think that's why this series that Chris has been leading us through is so helpful. There's unexpected blessings. There's unexpected opportunities to experience joy. Part of what I heard so clearly at our staff meeting yesterday is some of the ways that our staff have been celebrating some of the unexpected positive blessings that they're experiencing, being home with their families, having more time together, and experiencing the gift of those relationships. And that part of the work for all of us is not only to navigate our grief, but also to be open to the unexpected blessings and the unexpected opportunities that God is presenting, to not only experience the gift of his coming, to experience the gift of his love, but also to share that, to encourage that in the lives of other people. So I know this video was long today. I'm sorry for that. I appreciate you hanging in there through the whole thing, and know that we're thinking about you. And if there's anything we can do, if there's any ways that we can be helpful, and if there's any needs that you have, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for watching.